All right, looks like stream has started. Today I'm going to be talking about One Piece TCG and specifically structure decks. So today I have the Shanks structure deck as well as the Jewelry Bonnie structure deck. And these came from OPO 7 and OPO 9 or OPO 7 and OPO 9 respectively. I'm just going to be going over these because something interesting in One Piece is these structure decks, while most people will buy them with two structure decks and then combine the cards, you could buy one of these structure decks and enter a tournament consistently. So let's start off with Shanks here, arguably the weaker of the two. Let me find these. So I did get them sealed just to show that this is the actual structure deck, no tampering or anything like that. This is the structure deck as it comes out of the box. That down, get my glove back on. I got the gloves mainly just because got oil on my hands usually from my job. So just so that's there. So Shanks, he's a really good leader mainly because of his incredibly versatile effect. So his effect states that once per turn, whenever whenever an enemy attacks, you can cause that opponent to lose 1,000 power. So to explain that, let's say, let me just take one of the later cards. Let's say I have Rockstar, or my opponent has a Rockstar on field. His power is 6,000. So if he swung into my leader, I would need 2,000 to counter. And you can see the counter on the side of the card here. So I'd have to throw away 2 copies of Rockstar from my hand. With Shanks' ability, however, I can make him lose 1,000 power on attack, making him 5,000, and I would only need 1,000 in counter. So that's more or less how Shanks' ability works. Let me put him back into the deck. And pretty standard on life and power. 5 life for a monocolor leader is pretty standard, and 5,000 power is the normal. There are a few leaders that have more power than this, but it's not very common. So moving on to the first card, we have Uta. 6 cost, 4,000 power, 2,000 counter, which is very nice, and her cost to power, like just looking at those two, are not very good. Typically, for characters with events, their power will equal their cost in most cases. And also in most cases, for vanillas like Rockstar with no effect, they will have 2,000 more power than their cost, or they would have basically, if their cost was 2 more, it would be equal to their power times 1,000. Like 4 costs, 6,000, that's pretty standard for vanilla stats. However, where she becomes very good is with her abilities. So if you control a character with 1,000 or more power, which is common in this deck, she gains -4 costs. So instead of being 6 costs, she's a 2 cost. And other than that, she's a 4,000 or 4K blocker, which, let's say again, in the instance where I have Rockstar swinging into Shanks, I can instead have Uta take the hit by resting her. So that's what blocker does. So pretty good effect. She becomes a 2 cost 4K. So vanilla stats on a blocker. And even if you're not using her as a blocker, like you don't have that 10K to play her efficiently, she has 2K in counter. So once again, running back, I should just keep him off to the side because running back to the Rockstar example, if Rockstar were to attack into Shanks, 6,000 into 5,000, I could send Uta from my hand to the trash, which if you play other games, it's usually called the graveyard, or I forget what it's called in Magic the Gathering, but I don't think it's graveyard. But you can just send her to the trash from your hand, and it buffs your Shanks by 2,000, making him 7,000, and therefore the damage would not go through. Now, one thing to note, if it is even, the damage goes through. Like if I send a single Rockstar with Shanks and I'm being attacked by a 6K, it would still deal damage. Unless I use Shanks' effect, but yes. So even deals damage. But that's your first character, being Uta. And the deck gives you 2 of them. So honestly, she's a 4 of in pretty much every Shanks build. So buying 2 is the ideal. However, you could walk into a tournament, especially the locals, with this structure deck as is. Are you going to win 100% of the time? No. But more so, that comes down to the fact that if you're walking into a tournament with a structure deck, chances are you don't know how to play as well. If you know how to play well, you can walk into this and win the tournament. No problem. All right, next up, we have another 2 of in the structure deck, that being a 9-cost Shanks. So 9 cost, 10k power, so he has 1,000 more power than his cost times 1,000. If that makes sense. But he has an in-hand effect again. So if your opponent controls a character with 8,000 base power or more, he gains -3 cost in the hand. So instead of being a 9 cost 10k, he becomes a 6 cost 10k, which is very good stat wise. And actually, he would. So in my build, I might actually stream tomorrow and show off my build of Shanks, and it's actually going to include these 2 characters because I opened one of the Shanks structure decks to add them, but I left this one unopened for this stream. But then he has an on play. If your leader has the red hair pirates type, or is Uta, which is another leader that has 2 red versions actually. Let's see. This your leader gains 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So you gain. So let's say your leader Shanks. You play this card. He has red-haired pirates type. So he is now a 7k until your opponent ends their turn. So you end your turn. He's still 7k. Your opponent ends his turn. He drops back down to 5k. So that's a very good effect. It is stuck on, if your opponent doesn't play a lot of high power characters, it's stuck on a 9-cost on play, so that's not as good. But chances are your opponent's going to have something with a bit higher power for moving into the late game. So that's a pretty good effect. All right. Next up, we have Ben Beckman. 4 cost, 5k. Pretty standard stat line for a effect character. 1k encounter, which is the normal. There's not as many 2ks, which, of course, if there were, then that would be problematic in its own way. So he has an on-play effect that you may trash 1 card from your hand. If your leader has red-haired pirates type, KO one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 base power or less. So what that means when it says specifically base power is you cannot target a character that has 5,000 power, but you minus 1,000 power, which is in effect a fair number of red cards have, is to minus power. So you can't use this effect on a character that has been lowered to 4,000 base power. They have to have base power, which it's still a good effect because most blockers are under 4,000 base power and are cheaper. So he's really good for getting rid of blockers. And again, structure deck is at a 2 in the structure deck. All right, now it's looking like we're moving on to our 4-ofs. Oh, and before I move on, structure deck comes with 10 Dawn. So again, in terms of playability, you have immediate playability because it comes with the required amount of Dawn. So that's one thing. So next up, we have Monkey D. Luffy. One cost 2K, comes with 1K in counter, and his effect is actually an active main. So an on play can only be activated when you play the card. An active main can be played as long as it's your turn. And most of these have like a once per turn clause. This one does not actually, but it is kind of costly. So his effect is you can rest one of your Dawn cards, and this. Oh, he does have a once per turn clause in the effect that you have to rest this card. So it's a soft once, but it is a once per turn. But you may rest one of your Dawn and this character, and give one opponent's character minus 1,000 power during this turn. So again, that's leaning into, well, not leaning into, but that is leaning into a lot of effects that a lot of red decks have, where you minus the cost of your opponent's characters and then KO them. Ben Beckman is not one of those because, again, it has to be base power, but this deck does come with 4 Monkey D. Luffy. Another thing that they can do is, let's say you have a particularly annoying character that has a high power. You can minus cost from it, so it makes your attacking into it cheaper. Monkey D. Luffy isn't really a good card, I would say, for the deck because you're resting a Dawn anyways, so it's just resting a Dawn to give minus 1,000 power, which if you just equipped the Dawn, it would give 1,000 power. And then you would also have to use the Dawn to play this character, hope your opponent doesn't kill him the first time he uses this effect, and with only a 1K encounter attached to it, it's not that great of an option. So not really run that often, and not really surprising as to why. Next up, we have Yasop. One cost, 1K, with 1K encounter. Now, he's actually in for his effect. So normally these stat line would be terrible, not really any use to playing him. However, once per turn, without resting anything, not himself, not a Dawn or anything like that, just once per turn, give one rested Dawn card to your leader or one of your characters. So to explain how that works, let's say it's turn 3, because I want to be able to attack the turn I play this card. I rest one Dawn, play Yasop. Rest another Dawn, play Monkey D. Luffy. Rest a third Dawn, Monkey D. Luffy, give minus 1K to something else. Then Yasop's effect activates, taking one Dawn, giving it to my leader, and then I can, while playing all of my Dawn, I still get to swing with 6K, because when a Dawn is equipped to your character, it gives plus 1,000 for that turn, or for your turn. So that's more or less how Yasop works. There's another card that does this. Actually, I would say Yasop's a little bit better, honestly, because he doesn't require really anything. And with one Dawn, it's a really low investment character that can do this. The other one is a 2-cost named Haruda, who does it generically, basically. There are a few more that give Dawn to specific types, but Yasop and Haruta being the two generic give one Dawn or give one rested Dawn is a pretty good effect. All right, so next up we have a vanilla. So this one's going to be a bit easy to talk about. We have Howling Gab. He is 5 cost 7k, so again, 2k more power than the cost times 1,000. Because cost times 1,000 would be 5,000, 2,000 more. Really simple, and he has 1k encounter. Vanillas actually surprisingly have their place. A lot of games you'll have a lot where power creep kind of kills vanillas. However, having that vanilla stat line really helps them in One Piece. It gives them their designated place. You have a character like tomorrow. I'll stream tomorrow. I'll show off my build of Shanks, and I have a character in there that makes these really good, actually. But you can buff them, you can do all that stuff, and that initial stat line just really helps. So why is this out of order? Why did they print this deck out of order? All right, fixed it. There's one card that's in between two cards that go together. That's about it. But next up, we have Bonk Punch. 4 cost, 5k. And the reason why 5k is so important is because a majority of leaders in this game are 5k. So any character that is a power of 5k or more can attack the first turn that they can attack. You do have an aspect of summoning sickness where you can't attack the turn you played the card unless they have a rush. But the first turn they can attack with no further investment technically. Because a 4,000 or lower, you would need to equip Dawn for them to attack. And that means that's Dawn you can't play. So that's why 5k, very important. He also has 1k in counter, and he has an on play and a when attacking effect. His on play is you can play a monster from hand, and I'll actually show off monster next. That's the card that had a card in between him and it. I don't know why they printed it that way or organized it that way. But he also has a when attacking effect where if you equip him with 1 Dawn, when he attacks, he gains 2,000 power. So basically that 1 Dawn gives him 3,000 power and makes him an 8,000 instead of a 6,000. So that's pretty good. I would say the two best attacking powers is 7,000 and 8,000 just because they're kind of difficult to counter. So your best bet is to block them. But if your opponent doesn't have a blocker, they can't do that. So that's why that's a very good effect. But also, he plays his own protection in the form of monster. 3 cost 4k. However, again, if you play Bonk Punch, he is 0 cost essentially. You play Bonk Punch, and then you get to play him from hand for free. He does have 1k in counter, but the most important part for him is since he gets played with Bonk Punch, his effect helps Bonk Punch. So if your Bonk Punch would be KO'd by an effect, you can trash this character instead. So for instance, let's say my opponent's playing a black deck. Black centers around lowering the cost of your opponent's characters, and then KOing them a lot of times. So let's say I play Rush Fordon, play Bonk Punch. He plays Monster from hand. My opponent goes to kill the Bonk Punch, but then instead of Bonk Punch dying, I just send Monster to the trash. So again, he's a 4 cost 5k that with 1 Dawn becomes an 8k or gains 3k with 1 Dawn and plays his own protection. So he's certainly very good card. All right. Next up, we have Hongo. Hongo's a 3 cost 3k. This is more in line with traditional effect stats where a cost and attack are even times 1,000 or attack is even to the cost times 1,000. This one, however, has his 2K encounter, so that's certainly very useful. As again, it blocks 2K, or increases my leader, or whoever's being attacked, it increases their power by 2K, meaning my opponent needs to swing with 2,000 more to deal damage. And they can't predict this because it's when they attack, I play this from the hand. He also does have an effect that I can rest the effect, and if my leader is red hair pirate type, give one of my opponent's characters minus 2K power. So again, that plays into the normal concept of red, where A, you can attack into them better, or B, other than Ben Beckman or cards like him, it lowers the attack and allows you to attack more effectively into characters, trying to get them off the board. All right, next up, we have Yes Up, 5 cost, 6K. He has 1K encounter, and again, has an on play and a when attacking effect. So, on play, one of your leaders, I don't know why it says up to one of your leaders, or up to one of your leader. You only have one leader. So, your leader, they could have just said your leader, gains 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So, again, Shanks, he's 5K. I play Yasop until the end of my, so I end my turn, he's 6K still. My opponent ends his turn, then he drops back down to 5K. So that's very useful, especially in combination. So he's 6K, so he's essentially 7K now because his effect drops an opponent's attack by 1K. So right now he is a pseudo 6K for one attack. This makes him a pseudo 7K for one attack. But he also has a when attacking effect, and when attacking with one Dawn equip. So when he's 7K in attacking, give one of your opponent's character minus 1,000 power for the turn. So let's say your opponent has a blocker. They're counting on that blocker to be able to block. They have no counters in hand, and they're counting on it to survive. Well, let's say it's a green Luffy from the film archetype. He's 8K. You swing 7K, he blocks, and then you activate this effect. He's now a 7K, so this will kill the blocker that's causing you trouble. Or even then, if you attack with him as 7K, your opponent even doesn't have a blocker, but just has a really annoying card on field, lower its attack. And then you can attack into it if it's rested. Next up, we have Lime Juice. 3 cost, 3K, another 2K encounter, and has an on play that your opponent cannot activate up to one blocker with 4,000 power or less during this turn. Now, you do decide which blocker, so basically he just locks a blocker on play. Not a bad one, but I would say his 3K encounter is still better than the or his 2K encounter is still better than the effect, just because locking a blocker is good and all, but you could also just take the block and hopefully kill the blocker. And in red, that's not really a problem because a lot of red decks center around aggression and really being able to swing a lot. Like have a lot of characters on board that can swing. So killing a blocker over locking a blocker isn't really a big deal. Next up, we have another powerhouse of the deck. We have Lucky Roo. 4 cost, 5K, 1K encounter. But more importantly, he is a blocker with an on KO effect. So instead of having him live, you essentially want him to be KO'd. Because if your leader is red hair pirates type, KO one of your opponent's characters with a base power of 6,000 or less. So if your opponents have a character with 6,000 power or less that's really causing you trouble, and your opponent swings into him, 5K, takes him out, and then you just get to pop a character on your opponent's board. So he is certainly very good. Next up, of course, he's coming back. Of course, we have 4 copies of Rockstar. The fourth one's over here to the side. My demo piece. So 4 costs, 6K, standard vanilla stats, 1K encounter, no effect. In this deck specifically, I don't really run the vanillas, but there are some builds where the vanillas are run just because they're not bad. They are not bad. Just I don't personally run them because of what my deck is trying to do. Next up, this deck actually only has 1 event and 1 non-character card. So for non-character cards, you have either stages or events. So for this one, we have Come On, We'll Fight You. 1 cost event. And this is actually probably one of the more important cards in the deck because its effect is you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 red-haired pirate type card, other than it's another copy of itself, and add it to hand. So basically, it's a searcher. Or what a majority of this deck considers searchers. So that's more or less the deck. Honestly, the cards to take from this, if you're going to buy multiple and try to build your own deck, the Shanks, the Utas. If you're trying to run it a little more effectively, you want to run the Bonk Punch and Monsters. You also, of course, want to run the Come On, We'll Fight You. The Yassops are a definite in. These both Yassops. So the 1 cost and the 5 cost Yassops are a definite in. Let's see. I would say if you want to play it more budget friendly or a little bit safer, you want to run the Hongos and the Lime Juices, not for their effects or to play them, but more so just for those 2K counters because those end up being very important. And honestly, the Howling Gabs and Rockstars are if you have absolutely nothing else to add instead of that. And the Ben Beckmans and the Monkey D. Luffy's. So these cards are the cards that I would personally take out. I also don't run the Lime Juices or Hongos. I'm actually thinking about adding the Yassops just because their effect is pretty good. Or the 1 cost Yassops to my build. Of course, the 5 cost Yassops, all of these. I'm actually planning on taking out all of the Bonk Punch and Monsters just because, as usual, I'm running a deck more for fun than for actual playability. And my deck is going to include an obscene number of 9 and 10K, 9 and 10 costs. Just more so because it's fun dropping them rather than it's good build. But if you're going for efficiency, I would say, yeah, you want to add this stack cards. And again, if you have a locals near you that does One Piece, chances are you'll have people there that can trade or, and a lot of times, help. Will help you. But these are if you have absolutely nothing else, and these I would say are a definite drop. And again, if you buy 2 of the structure decks, you would be adding 2 of the Shanks, 2 of the Utas, and which one was the other 2 of? Or not Ben, 2 Ben Beckman. I would keep the 2 Ben Beckman because he's a little bit better than these, and just 2 and 2 for Shanks and Uta. That would probably be your ideal if all your only resources are 2 copies of the structure deck. But again, this is a 100% playable structure deck for tournament use or locals. I probably wouldn't bring this into a higher tournament than the locals, like just at your local card shop if you have one, or start a group with your friends. Oop, see, just got here. What's this? Why does this remind me? You can't have fun and be competitive. You can actually, especially in One Piece, because as I said in the description, this is the structure deck, and it is 100% tournament ready. Like you could win a tournament with this deck. It's unique concept to anyone who plays Yu-Gi-Oh, but it is possible. And sorry it took me so long to respond. I'm actually my desk is over that away. I am. As I said, as I was explaining earlier, my other deck is my actual Shanks deck is not built to be efficient. So I was going over how to build this deck efficiently. My deck isn't for efficient, it's to drop it's as soon as I get to 10 done, just start dropping 10 drops. Which is not good. It's not strong, um but it's funny. Um and in One Piece, you don't actually have to build for the meta. Like you can come in with the dumbest thing. I've beaten I have beaten one of the most meta decks, actually two of the most meta decks with a deck I built for a rogue tournament. I have not, but I rarely enter the tournaments. Actually, next week, like this Saturday, actually, I'm going to be entering the rogue tournament with a deck that I built. If I have some time after showing off Bonnie, I can actually go over that one too. It's just dumb deck I built. This one, not this one. So the ones I'm going over today, as you can see, all plastic wrapped. This one was too, but I opened it just at the beginning of the stream. These are the structure decks. And again, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, it's weird to say that you could enter. No, I meant the one you'll use in tourney. Actually, let me pull that one out because it's neither of these two. I can actually pull that one out right now, though. Let me go grab it. I'm still here. I'm just looking for a deck. Oh, I have too many of them. Yeah, if only I could not find it at the moment, but I was planning on streaming tomorrow, showing off my Shanks deck, and I will definitely find it by then. Just to say what it is, it's a pure smile king. Smiles being a subset of the animal kingdom pirates, which of course works with king. And yeah, they're centered around a board swarm of weaker characters in order to get basically overwhelm your opponent. But moving on, next up we have Jewelry Bonnie, the structure deck again. So again, for monocolors, a five life is pretty standard. 5,000 power, also pretty standard. She has an interesting effect though. So on your opponent's attack, you can rest one of your Dawn cards to rest one of your opponent's leaders or characters. So to explain that, let's say my opponent has Ben Beckman and Shanks. Swings 5K with Shanks. I would rest one Dawn, and then I could also rest Ben Beckman, so only Shanks can attack me that turn. Just as a short explanation of how that works. Now, you can't, if someone's attacking you, you can't use this ability to rest the attacking character because they have to rest the character before attacking. So you can't try to scum it like that, but yeah. So when your opponent attacks, rest a Dawn, rest a character, or if they attack with a character, like they attacked with Ben Beckman instead, I could rest the leader by resting a Dawn. And that's a common feature with greens is resting, locking rested characters, um, especially in Carrot, which is another one of the decks I play. So first off, we have we have Kid and Killer. It is. It's this one is One Piece TCG. So pretty much just like Dragon Ball based on an anime. This one is the One Piece anime. And I don't think I've played Dragon Ball TCG yet, but if you've played Magic the Gathering, One Piece plays a lot like that. Or if you played Hearthstone, it's more like that just because you have the what's my best card? Ooh, that's hard. It's hard to say. I'd probably say is it so in terms of decks as a whole, I'd probably say it's Egghead. So this is one of my two best decks. Vegapunk, he's 5K, can't attack though, and he has a base 2 life. So, fun fact with Egghead being a base 2 life character, I mean, the most life I ended a game on is 15 with Egghead. Base 2 life, by the way. But yeah, they had to make him unable to attack and a base 2K to make him balanced. His effect is that good. Yeah. Best back to Bonnie. So for the first card in this deck, we have Kid and Killer. 2 cost, 2K power, 1K encounter. So to explain that to anyone who just came in, counter is, let's say my opponent's Shanks. He's swinging 5K into my leader. I can then send Kid and Killer from the hand and block all damage. Because he's swinging 5K, my leader would become 6K. And you have to go over to block damage, basically, and not take it. But he actually has a much better effect. So he has an on play. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, reveal 1 Supernova's type, and add it to hand. And the rest go to the bottom of your deck. So basically, pull 5 cards from the top, choose 1, add it to hand. So that's more or less what this game's definition of a searcher is. So instead of searching through your deck, you look at the top few cards and then add one of those. He also has the effect of on your opponent's attack, you may trash him and set one of your Dawn cards as active. So let's say you play him, you get that search, but you played cards and now both of your Dawns rested. And your opponent has, let's say, Shanks and Ben Beckman. So when Ben Beckman attacks, you can trash him, set a Dawn as active, then immediately rest the Dawn to rest the enemy leader through her effect. But without an active Dawn, you can't do that. So that's why he's good. So you don't want to use him for counter because he's better being on field / being played for the searcher effect. And the structure deck, of course, has 2 of him. It's recommended that you get 2 of the structure deck just so you can get 4 of him in the deck, but it's completely playable without 2 of the structure deck. Next up, we have Law and Beppo. And these are actually a mirror because Kid is the Eustace Captain Kid is the captain of the Kid Pirates, and Killer is his right hand. Law, Trafalgar Law, is the captain of the Heart Pirates, and Beppo is his right hand man. So it's kind of a parallel for these two. But he is a 10 cost 11K, and he has an on play effect, which is to rest one of your opponent's characters, and that character is locked, so will not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. Then, if your opponent has 2 or more rested character, your leader gains 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So you play this character. Let's say you lock a Capone Gang Beige. That Beige will not become unrested during your opponent's next turn. Then, if they have a second rested Capone Gang Beige, your leader gains, or any other character, your leader gains 2,000 power, and when you end your turn, she's still 7K. When your opponent ends their turn is when she drops back down to 5K. So makes attacking a lot harder. Next up, as I showed a second ago, we have Capone Gang Beige. Now, 2 cost, 1K, has 1K encounter, but he also has blocker, which means if you play him, he can redirect an attack to himself. Let's say your opponent has a Law and Beppo, they attack, you have Capone Gang Beige, you can rest him, he dies, but he takes the hit instead of your leader. He also has an on play that if you have 6 or more rested Dawn, you draw 1 card and trash 1 from hand. So you take the top card of your deck, throw 1 card away. But one note is you can equip Dawn, but equip Dawn is not counted as rested Dawn. So you have to actually rest it. And you get 4 of him. So we have another 2 of. We have Basil Hawkins. 4 cost, 4,000 power. 2K encounter though, so that's very important. Basically, that means if my leader's attacking with a 6K into my leader and I send him to the trash, it negates all damage. They would have to attack with 7K or more. But he also has an on-field effect during every one of your end phases. Set one Dawn card as active. So that means you can play him. You can have all of your Dawn be rested, and then at the end of the turn, it unrests one Dawn, which Jewelry Bonnie can then use to rest an opponent's character when one of theirs attacks. All right. Next up, we have X Drake. 5 cost, 5K. And again, a 2000 counter. He also has an on play that if your leader is Supernova's type, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, and then set one of your Dawn as active during the end phase. So it doesn't become active on using this effect, but when you end your turn, it becomes active, which again is useful for using Bonnie's effect. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Scratchman Apu. 1 cost, 1K, 2K encounter though. And he has an on play that you can rest a character with a cost of 2 or less. Honestly, unless your opponent has a blocker, this isn't very useful. Just use him for the 2K is a lot better. But he is worth running for the 2K, and also as a 1 cost to stop a blocker if your opponent has a blocker with a cost of 2 or less, which is fairly common. Next up, we have Uroge. 4 cost, 5K, 1K encounter. He also has blocker and an effect that at the end of the turn, set 1 Dawn card as active. Now, I don't know if the structure deck comes with them, but not only for your leader's effect, but also there are, and let me just check this real quick. There are no counter events in this deck. All right, so normally when you have a bunch of characters that would unrest Dawn during the end phase, it's 4 counter events, which you can add counter events to this. But again, if you're playing without the structure deck, having one of the characters that unrests a Dawn on your board at a time is probably better because you don't really have a lot of characters that rest a Dawn during your opponent's turn, and you don't have any counter events in this deck. All right. Next up, we have Caribou. 4 cost, 5K, 1K counter again. He has blocker, but also has the effect of you have 6 or more rested Dawn cards, he gains 1000 power. So this is useful for attacking and also for blocking because it makes him a 6K blocker on 4 cost. So next up, we have another Caribou. This one's 3 cost, 3K, no counter on him. But his on play is you play a Caribou with a cost of 4 or less from your hand rested. So you play 3 Dawn to play him, and then that plays the 4 cost for free. It plays him rested, so you can't block with him that turn unless you have something that unrests him. So it's still good because sometimes your opponent will still go after him just because having a blocker on field for next turn. So he still gets his block essentially. Just because having a blocker on your fields is kind of annoying to deal with. But next up, we have Bartolomeo. 3 cost, 4K, 1K encounter. He has blocker, which means again he can redirect an attack to himself. But he also has an effect during your turn that if a character is rested by your effect, draw 1 card and trash 1 from hand. So basically just a little more card cycling You can get rid of a useless card in hand to gain a potentially good card. I don't see many cards on or in this deck though that rest one of your opponent's characters except for Kid and Killer. So I don't know how useful that will be in this deck. But again, just him being a blocker is pretty good. Next up, we have Monkey D. Luffy. 5 cost, 6k, 1000 encounter. And he also has an effect that if you have 3 or more characters, your characters with a cost of 3 or less cannot be KO'd by opponent's effects. So let's say you're playing against a black deck, like Rob Lucci, for instance. You have him on board, you have, let's say, Bartolomeo, and you have Capone Gang Beige. Now, Bartolomeo and Capone King Beige cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects, which what black does, or what a lot of black decks do, is they lower the cost of their opponent's cards and then just KO low-cost cards. More of a board control strategy. So he is your protection against that for the most part. And he has somewhat innate protection against that, being a 5 cost, because the higher your cost, the harder it is to lower it to a point where it can be popped, which is the terminology used. Next up, we have Roanoa Zoro. 1 cost, 2k, 1k encounter. And if you have 3 or more characters, then he gains 2000 power during the turn while attacking, which makes him a 4k, which means no gear, just normal. They do have Gear 5 Luffy as a leader. Yeah, it's black purple. But yes, this one is regular Luffy. Yeah. I don't know if they have Snake Man though, or any of the other gears. But yep, he's actually a pretty strong leader, which is most of them. But yep, so honestly though, this Zoro's an easy drop for this deck. Basically, requiring you to have 3 or more characters on board isn't hard for this deck. But who's the strongest leader? So right now it's between a pure green Roanoa Zoro. Oh, strongest leader I got. My 2 strongest are definitely Egghead and Carrot. So these 2. Egghead, again, as I said, he starts off at 2 life, but the highest I've gotten that to is 15 at the end of a game. And again, your life needs to drop to 0 to lose. So having 15 life means obviously I won. And Carrot, her entire strategy is around locking your opponent's cards. So basically, once they become rested, they don't become unrested, essentially making it so the only character your opponent can attack with, or the only person your opponent can attack with, is opponent's leader, if you have a full board of resting or of locked characters. Those would be the 2 strongest decks I have. Individually for leader, it's kind of hard to say for leaders because we're at a point of power creep where there's not really a specific strongest standalone leader. In the end, it definitely depends on how you build your deck. I mean, under technicalities, it would be Whitebeard as the strongest leader in the game because he's 6 life, 6,000 power, but his actual play style isn't strong because he needs to His effect is that he takes a life every turn. So it's basically just try to win the game in under 6 turns, basically, unless your opponent can deal damage. I guess there's also a Luffy that's 6,000 power, but he is 3 life. Another very strong leader though, based on effects. All right. Next up, we have our first event for this deck. We have Demonic Aura 9 sword style Asura Demon 9 flash. Very easy name. It's a 2 cost event that is played during the main phase, so it's only playable during your turn. And its effect is that one of your leaders gains 3,000 power during this turn. Then you can rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or more, or rest one of your characters with a cost of 3 or more. And if you do, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So this is really good for dealing with blockers. For instance, let's say you play Zoro since he's a 1 cost, then you play this. Or actually not Zoro. Can't activate it with Zoro. Let's say you play or you play Caribou. You play Caribou, Caribou plays Caribou, then you rest the Caribou to rest a 5 cost or less, all while your leader or one of your characters gains 3,000 power. It also has a trigger, however. Now, how triggers work is, let's say this card is in your life. As I said, Jory Bonnie is a 5 life leader. Let's say this card's in your life. You take damage and gain this card as a result of taking life and damage. You can then activate the trigger, which is just to rest a character with a cost of 4 or less. Not as good as its just play effect, but the benefit to triggers is that they are free. You don't have to rest on to play the trigger. And next up, we have the last card in the deck, arguably one of the more important ones. And as per usual, it comes with Tendon, which again, you have to have Tendon in your deck. So 100% playable, as I said. It comes with the required resources needed to play. But next, for our last card, we have More Pizza, which the effect of More Pizza, it's a 1 Dawn effect. So you have to basically rest 1 Dawn to play it as a resource. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Supernova type card other than More Pizza, so you can't search out a copy of itself, and add it to hand, and then the rest go to the bottom of your deck. So again, that's this game's form of a searcher. So that's it for the Jewelry Bonnie deck. Now, if you wanted to more or less optimize it as far as structure deck can go, obviously dropping the Forerunner or Zoro. If you buy a second structure deck, you want 2 of the Kid and Killer, 2 of the Law and Beppo. That's about it. As changes to this deck to make it as effective as a structure deck build can go. There are more cards for especially Supernovas, which is what Jewelry Bonnie plays around. But as far as structure decks go, that's about the only changes I would make. Yeah, that has been the Shanks and Jewelry Bonnie structure decks. Again, they're fully playable in tournament as is. There are some ways you can optimize it as far as the structure decks go, but typically that just involves a second structure deck and adding 2 of the 2 costs basically to the deck. Other than that, optimization just comes down to what you want to play, what you want to add. Yeah, I found my Shanks. Might be able to show off my Shanks. I definitely have time. Or if I can't find him, maybe another deck. Yeah, let's go with another deck. So just to show you what. Oh, wait. There it is. So just to show you a little bit of a difference between this Shanks and a somewhat more optimized Shanks, I have my own build. So let me actually. I'll add cards as they come. It's out of order right now because it's been freshly played, but of course we have Come On, We'll Fight You, which is 1 cost event. Trigger, draw a card. Its play effect is look at the top 5 and add a red hair pirates type other than Come On, We'll Fight You. Next up, we have their stage, which is basically if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like a field spell. But we have the stage. You may rest the stage. If your leader has red-haired pirates type, give one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power. So again, just more lowering. Next up, we have a 9-cost Shanks. So he has a rush as a base, which means that on the turn I play him, he can attack. He's a 9-cost 10k with zero counter. But he also has the effect of when attacking, your opponent cannot activate a blocker that has 2,000 or less power during this battle. So basically, that just locks all blockers without 3,000 or more power. Next up, we have Uta. 1-cost 2k. She has 1 cost encounter, but most of the time you're playing her for on play since it's Come On, We'll Fight You on a character. Yep, actually, she does have one difference: is she does not have a clause where you cannot add another Uta to hand. So you can add another copy of herself. Of course, I have the 9-cost Shanks from the structure deck. I already explained that one. Minus 3 cost if you or your opponent has an 8k or more, and also an on play where your leader gains 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's turn. Also have the Uta from the structure deck. If you control a character with 10,000 power or more, minus 4 cost, and has blocker. Here's another red force. Now, Lucky Roo is another one of the cards that was in the structure deck. Blocker with an on-KO effect. 1k encounter, 4/5, and this one KOs a character with 6,000 power or less on when he dies, which since he has blocker is highly likely. Next up, we have Ben Beckman, 7 cost, 7k, 1k encounter, and trash one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less on KO or on play. So, for reference on what trash means in difference to KO, trashing means that trashing does not activate on KO effects. Next up, I have Silver Israeli, 1k encounter, 5 cost 6k. He has a blocker with an on play that if your opponent has 2 or more characters with 5,000 or more power, draw 2 cards, trash 1 card from hand. So the trash actually happens after the draws. So if one of the draws you don't like, you can then just trash it instead of trashing a card from hand. Of course, Monster was in the structure deck as well. He's probably going to be gone soon. Uta, another one of those. Next up, we have another event. Nobody Hurts a Friend of Mine, 2-cost event with a main effect of if your leader has red-haired pirates type, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 power, and then if your opponent has a character with a cost to, or with 5,000 or less, or 5,000 or more power, you draw a card. So it lowers one of your opponent's characters, and you would want to play it when they have a character that's still going to have 5,000 power. So you get the draw as well. Another copy of Red Force. Of course, we have another copy of. Next up, we have Bonk Punch. Not that one. Ben Beckman, Vanilla 1K encounter, and a 7,000, 9,000. There's the Bonk Punch. Another copy of Come On, We'll Fight You. Another copy of Monster. Another Lucky Roo. Those. Next up, we have a 5-cost Yes Up. I'm not sure if that's the same one, but I think it's a different one. 5-cost 6K. On play, your leader gains plus 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. And with 1 Dawn equipped, give up to, oh, no, this is the same Yes Up. All right. As in the structure deck, we have another 10-cost Shanks, who on play KO a character with 10,000 power or less, which is very strong. It does come with, you have to use all of your Dawn and cannot play any other cards that turn. Next up, we have a non-red haired pirate. We have Ein, 7 cost, 6K. And on play, set one of the or set the power of one of your opponent's characters to 0 during this turn. So very strong effect. Another 10-drop Shanks there. Another Lucky Roo. Another Nobody Hurts a Friend of Mine. Another 10-drop Shanks. Now, this is the card I was talking about that really helps the vanillas in the deck, but also helps a lot of the others. We have Nefeltari Vivi, and actually, I'm trying to attain. I got someone looking for 3 more of those for me. But 7 cost, 4K, which sounds like terrible stats, especially since she only has a 1K counter. But what you really want her for is her effect, which, as long as she's on field, all of my red characters with a cost of 3 or more, other than herself, gain rush, which means I play a card. If they don't have rush, they now do and can attack that turn. Next up, we have probably the biggest boss in the deck, Gold D. Roger, 10 drop, 13K. He has rush as well. And his effect is when your opponent activates blocker, if either you or your opponent has 0 life cards, you win the game. So if they're at 0 life cards, they either block it because they're not going to be able to counter out of a 1,300, or they lose. But if they activate blocker and either of you are at 0 life, they lose anyways. Just a very strong card. We have another one of the 9-drop Shanks. Then we have a Pell. 5 cost, 6K, 0 counter. But when attacking with 1 Dawn equipped, you KO a 4,000 power or less card. And this one doesn't say base power. So if you lower a character's power, let's say through the effect of Ein, you already have Pell on field, you play Ein, give him 1 Dawn. You can then immediately KO any character in the game. Like you could KO Gold D. Roger with this combo, the highest attack card in the game, because Ein says it sets the power to 0. So Gold D. Roger becomes 0 power. You swing with 7K into lead with Pell, pop Gold D. Roger. Very powerful combo. Another Come On, We'll Fight You. Another Yes Up. The 4th Come On, We'll Fight You. Next, we have another 10 cost Shanks. 10 cost, 12K. He comes with rush built in, and as long as he's on the field, all of my opponent's characters gain minus 1,000 power. So again, very good combo. 2 more Silver Israelis, 1 more her, 1 more Uta, another one of these 9-drop Shanks, another Yasop and Lucky Roo. Kind of messed up my organization, but it's all right. Another of the 9-drop Shanks from the structure deck. Another one of these 10-drop Shanks. And a 3rd copy of Ein. So that's just look into a more optimized version. I'm actually still upgrading it. There's a few things I would like to take out for some other, but and it's not meta at all. It's not the strongest variant of it, It's more so just a funny. I'm gonna start dropping 10Ks now, or I'm gonna start dropping 10 costs now, and good luck dealing with it. Is the premise of this deck. The biggest issue with the deck is survival. That's why Shanks's effect is very good for that, where I make it so any 10 cost that or 5K that would attack me becomes a 4K once per turn, though. So again, the defense is basically zeroed out to max out on offense. But that's the difference. Because again, none of the Hongos, none of the Lime Juices who are 2Ks, very limited on blockers. And I'm actually going to be reducing that a little more because I will definitely be adding these Shanks and Utas to that. Thinking about the Yasops, but not very sure about that. But that'll just about do it for this stream, I think. I've been going for an hour and 11. That sounds pretty okay. I went through both of the decks. I went through my own build of Shanks. Definitely need to find that king because that'll be funny for next time to show off my rogue deck. I'll tell you, and if I stream that next week, I'll be able to tell you if it won the rogue tournament and I got it banned because that's my end goal with that. So that'll seem to do it for this stream. And I'll try to get on stream. I'll try to get on stream tomorrow after work. Um, probably playing some Warframe, maybe some Master Duel. But that'll do it for this stream.